Hello again, everybody. I'm Steve. I'm an alcoholic. This video is going to be my experience with step 5 of the 12 steps of recovery. The suggested reading that goes along with step 5 is in page 72 to 75 in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And of course, step 5 in the 12 and 12. Now, step 5 says, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Now, the human being is assumed to be your sponsor who's taken you through the steps. I personally haven't heard of any cases where the human being that you share your fourth step with isn't the sponsor, but that doesn't mean that it has to be your sponsor. I've never read anything or heard anything that says it has to be. I've just never heard of cases where it wasn't the sponsor. So in my experience, the human being is assumed to be the sponsor. You may be experiencing apprehension about, okay, well, I've got all these secrets and I'm going to open up and really talk about intimate personal details of my life with this guy or this woman, and you may have some fear that, well, what if my dirty laundry gets aired or he ends up, having a slip and then telling people all my stuff or whatever. I just want to share that I have never heard of that happening. In my experience, I've been at this for over 10 years, and I've never heard of a case of a sponsor violating a sponsee's confidentiality by taking stuff that was shared in confidence in a fourth step and repeating it elsewhere. Never have I ever heard of that happening. I certainly have never done that. So, and my sponsors have certainly never done it. So when I got together with my sponsor to share my fourth step, what I had written in my fourth step, my sponsor kind of put me at ease by sharing some stuff from his story that was confidential, and said, he shared with me about when I wrote my fourth step, I wrote about this and that, and it kind of disarms the situation and kind of sets you at ease. And if he was willing to share some of his stuff, then I was willing to share my stuff with him. And so it's sort of a mutual respect and a mutual confidence. A misconception or a fear that some people may have when they go into doing their fifth step is that you may think that the sponsor is going to analyze and critique what you write, like, oh, you really shouldn't have done this, or boy, it's pretty bad that you did that, or I can't believe that you did this, or it's not like that at all. It's not about the sponsor providing comment or feedback on the crap from your life that you wrote about. It's about you getting it out, and the sponsor is just there to listen and hear it, to be that human being. When it says admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, the sponsor is just there to be that human being. And ultimately, what you're going to see for yourself is that your selfishness and your character defects that we'll get to, those get illuminated, and your sponsor can help show you that, see, you wrote about this and that. Well, that's self-centered fear, that's selfishness, greed, what have you. And it's not about him comparing and contrasting all the crap you did against what someone else did or what he did or whatever. It's not about that at all. So I remember that when I shared my fifth step with my sponsor, it felt really good to get honest with myself about who I really was versus who I thought that I was. When I was active in my alcoholism, I was sort of delusionally self-absorbed, like I said, and I was always the victim. I could do no wrong. The world was out to get me. I was always getting screwed over. Why won't people do what I think they should do? And all that stuff that we covered. And I was resentful as a result. That's all really self-absorbed. And when I wrote about it and I got on paper just how self-absorbed and full of self-centered fear I had been for all those years, I was able to contrast, this is the delusion of who I thought I was, and then on paper, here's who I really have been for these years. And it's the beginning of becoming self-aware. These are my selfish behaviors that I've got documented proof of now that I'm going to work on amending and changing as we go forward. And it was really cathartic and transformative to vocalize them, to see them on paper in my handwriting, and to share them with my sponsor and get honest and get self-aware about, there's my character defects, there's all my self-centered fears, and the rest of the steps are to help me to let go of them and to kind of amend my ways and change my perception so that I don't have to behave like that anymore. And that felt good. The last thing I'll say about step 4 is that some people, you may have heard, they'll have a little ceremony and they'll burn their 4th step. Or I remember one time I crumpled it up and I threw it in the river or what have you, which, yes, that was littering. But you may not want to do that. You may just want to keep it in a safe, secret place, because when you get to your 8th step, it can come in handy to have that list of resentments, because when you write your 8th step, it's all in your 4th step. Most of it's going to be in your 4th step, because usually the people that you're resentful at are the people that you harmed and screwed over in the past, or you've got some kind of beef and drama with people that, you know, you can draw parallels between your 4th step writing and your 8th step list that you write. So it can be handy to have your 4th step when you do your 8th step. But it's up to you. Burn it, throw it away, have a little ceremony, or keep it to reference when you do your 8th step. That's my experience. Thank you.